What is a great TV show that never became popular? Awake. It was a show starring Jason Isaacs where he simultaneously lived in two separate timelines. He was in a car accident with his wife and son. So in one timeline, his son dies and he still has his wife. But in the other timeline, it's his wife who dies, while his son is still alive. And roughly he swaps between the two timelines when he goes to sleep. He also plays a detective, and that comes into play as the worlds sort of run in parallel, and he uses information from one world to solve crimes in the other. That was kind of an ancillary part of the show, and was just there to give this guy a mission. The show only lasted 13 episodes, but had some serious potential. And first, I have to point out that I am not making this up. Salvage 1, Andy Griffith plays the owner of a salvage yard who, in the first episode, has managed to purchase surplus rocket engines from NASA, which he uses to build his own rocket ship. Why? Because there's valuable salvage in space. He launches the rocket from his salvage yard successfully, collects a dead satellite, returns it to Earth and melts it down just as the government agents arrive too late to catch him in the act. After that it's like, the Incredible Hulk. Salvage guy flies, while government agents try to catch him. Trust me. As a kid, this was the bomb. Edit. I found the 2-hour pilot on YouTube. https://www.youtube.com/watch?v=Zooge4pjb248 . Pushing Daisies. Got cancelled during the 2007 writers' strike. It's kinda old at this point but remains one of my favorite all-time shows in all its unfinished glory. HBO's Vale. A wonderful and strange Depression-era story about the forces of good and evil as a bunch of carnies make their way through the Dust Bowl. It was tragically cancelled after 2 seasons, but is an absolute must-watch. Eureka! It was a travesty that it got stuck on sci-fi if put in the right channel and slot so people knew it existed. I sincerely think it would have been huge. Bored to death Jason Schwartzman, Zach Galifianakis, and Ted Danson. Great chemistry and some hilarious dialogue. This scene in particular always stuck with me. https://youtube.be/he57l6lq8dm. Travelers S1 and S3 are stellar, raving reviews too. The shtick where a newly arrived traveler sees undestroyed Earth for the first time and just can't believe it. It's a feeling that nothing else can quite compare to, and I'm getting queasy again just writing about it. Also great characters, just the right mix of clever but not too serious, heavy, and the whole premise is of course extremely fucking relevant. Jericho, cool premise, space above and beyond, gritty sci-fi is always great. Dead Like Me, very underrated show. If you've never heard about it, this is all you really need to know to start off. The main character, a young female slacker, gets killed in the first 10 minutes by a toilet seat falling from an abandoned space station that burns up in the atmosphere. She then gets recruited as a Reaper. Her job is to basically separate people's souls from their bodies shortly prior to their death so that they can transition to the afterlife without the trauma of their deaths weighing on their souls. It's a dark comedy that is profoundly deep at times. It also stars Mandy Patinkin in a supporting role. It was a great show. Edit. Wow, this really exploded, didn't it? News Radio was a critical darling, but not a big following, but goddamn that show was funny. Then there's stuff like Rubicon, or Lights Out which me and at most 6 other people were watching. I feel like we should have some sort of support group, but how would we find each other? C-Lab 2021, an oft-forgotten gem of early Adult Swim. Also, The Brack Show. Erie, Indiana, https://m.imdb.com/title/tt0101088/. Almost Human. A future cop, Carl Urban, doesn't like that all detectives get assigned a robot partner. He gets stuck with a previous generation model, Michael Ealy, and together they solve crimes and eventually start to become friends. It was actually a really good show. They just should have waited 4 to 5 years to make it because sci-fi shows weren't as mainstream and popular in 2013 as they are now. Suburgatory was great and I agree with Dead Like Me too. Also I felt Dollhouse and Firefly didn't get enough recognition. You're the Worst. Grounded for life. Asterisk Halt and Catch Fire. Asterisk Called, the best show no one ever watched. A period, prestige drama set in the early 1980s to 90s about the birth of the personal computing, gaming, and internet ages. The first season is not super great, the second is better, but the third and fourth seasons are about as good as TV gets. It's on Netflix in the US if anyone wants to give it a go. Garth Marenghi's Dark Place. Gallivant. It's a great TV that's like Monty Python meets Broadway, and it's so funny but it never got love and barely got a second season. Clone High. Lasting 13 episodes, it had a hilarious but brief run on MTV in the early 2000s. Crossing my fingers that the rumors of a possible reboot come true. Trial and Error. Came out in 2017 and cancelled in 2019. It's essentially a true crime mockumentary sitcom. The first season was good, but not great, but then the second season was absolutely fantastic. This show is for anyone who loves shows like Documentary Now and Parks and Rec. I thought Journeyman was really solid. Apparently I was alone in that opinion. Raising Hope. Party Down. Such a stellar cast, great premise, but got kneecapped when their eventual stars all got bigger gigs. Jane Lynch went on to do Glee, Adam Scott landed his gig on Parks and Rec, and the show ended after 2 seasons. Still one of my favorite comedy shows. Are we having fun yet? Black Sails. Love me a good golden age of piracy show. Home Movies. It was popular enough on Adult Swim back in the early 2000s, but it really was more than good enough for a primetime TV slot. Lauren Bouchard, the creator of Bob's Burgers, made the show with Brendan Small, who then created Metalocalypse. H. John Benjamin got his start on Home Movies as Coach McGurk, I'm pretty sure. It was pure gold, but I guess didn't have the same draw as Family Guy and whatever else was huge at the time. The Finder, starring Jeff Stoltz. Unfortunately it only has 1 season. Patriot, https://www.imdb.com/title/tt4687882/closing parenthesis. Fantastic slow-burn dark comedy spy show. Available on Amazon Prime. And a podcast just started to give some ancillary fun. Edit. https://www.youtube.com/watch?v=hw6usagexp. Rectify and Halt and Catch Fire are the 2 incredible dramas I always recommend that people might have missed. The Nick. Really enjoyed it, and just found out they're bringing it back for season 3. Limitless on CBS only got 1 season for such reason, plus CBS wanting to put more room for other stuff. Update. Wow, thanks for the awards and upvotes. Most I've ever gotten. If only the show could continue with this high amount of upvotes. Terra Nova. Why Fox? Why? Legion was one of the most creative shows I've ever seen, but barely anyone knows about it. It lasted 3 good seasons, all of which are very diverse. It might be the best superhero TV show ever. But half the time people think I'm talking about that old Paul Bettany film. Happy Endings. A great little comedy that deserved better. Gallivant was one of my favorite shows during its run. It was this light, quirky fantasy musical on network TV. It was a miracle it got to 2 seasons. It felt like Mel Brooks got tabbed to remix Princess Bride and Monty Python. If it came out after Hamilton, the musical hype might have put some more wind in its sails. Hell on Wheels is a seriously slept-on show. It was on AMC at the same time as Breaking Bad and when The Walking Dead was at its peak, so it got shoved under the rug. I am not okay with this. Good vibes, nice songs, cool style, quite good cast. I liked the ending of the first season, but Netflix has just cancelled the whole show, due to COVID as they said. Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency. Forever with Ioan Griffith was pretty decent but got cancelled after its first season. The premise was an immortal man who works as a medical examiner and helps the police solve cases. It's basically a procedural with a bigger arc about his immortality and the consequences of it, and I think it could have gone on nicely for another 2 seasons if it had become more popular. But it just didn't pick up. Also, Psych is great but has a small albeit very devoted following, while the less superior ripoff The Mentalist got way more popular. Lie to me. I was actually sad it never got the go-ahead for S4 and beyond. Such a great show. Edit. OMG, thank you kind stranger for my first ever award. Loudly crying. Edit 2. Holy shit. So much love and even more awards. Thank you kind strangers for the awards. Smiley face. I hope everyone has a blessed holiday. Oblongs. It was a part of those string of adult shows that wasn't really raunchy but it still had its zingers to it, the son not being able to sleep unless he was hearing the sound of his parents' bed squeaking. If it came out today or a few years ago it would have been more appreciated. Flash forward. Don't trust the B. I loved that show. The cast were great and it was actually funny. I still rewatch now and again. Don't know why it was never popular. It's also a show I think could be genuinely rebooted without it being forced. Edit. Thanks for the awards. I love that my most upvoted awarded comment is about DTTB. I'm also very thankful that I turned off my sound notifications for Reddit before I went to bed. Lol. Reaper was great, but was cancelled too early unfortunately. The Good Guys. A pretty funny cops show with Colin Hanks and Bradley Whitford. Deadwood. It's a damn shame they cancelled that masterpiece. Could have had a great ending if not for that. Better Off Ted. I actually laughed so hard at this show I cried a few times. Too bad it was only 2 seasons. Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. Extremely underrated musical theater show that's so amazing and has deep story. Spaced. Simon Pegg, Nick Frost and Edgar Wright, created, co-written and starring Jessica Stevenson, collaboration before they were cool. Can't believe how few have watched this show. The writing and acting is original and fantastic, but it's the editing and cutaways that make the show phenomenal. Timeless. It was such a good show. Sucks that it got cancelled but at least they were able to wrap it up. Sad face. Oh. And also The Exorcist. Thanks for the silver smiley face. Terriers. A classic that nobody watched. Ugly Americans. Better Off Ted. https://en.wikipedia.org/wiki/better_off_ted closing parenthesis. Slacker Cats. https://en.wikipedia.org/wiki/slacker_cats closing parenthesis. Future Man. https://en.wikipedia.org/wiki/future_man_TV_series. Powerless. https://en.wikipedia.org/wiki/powerless_TV_series. The Brink. https://en.wikipedia.org/wiki/the_brink_TV_series. Almost Forgot. Dan vs. https://en.wikipedia.org/wiki/dan_vs. closing featuring one of my favorite actors, Curtis Armstrong. I really enjoyed Warehouse 13, but I have not met anyone else who has heard of it. Police Squad. Young Justice. Penny Dreadful. The Leftovers. Pete and Pete from the 1990s Nickelodeon lineup. Best, Slice of Life. Teen comedy show. Stellar writing, amazing music, great characters and went completely bonkers. Way better than Malcolm in the Middle. Fight Me. White Collar. Chuck. Luckily it avoided cancellation long enough to finish the story in 5 seasons, but it is severely underrated and not many people I know have heard of it. Man Seeking Woman. Such a hilarious show. It deserved at least a cult following. Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency. For anyone who loves the absurdist humor of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, this TV adaptation of the Douglas Adams novel series is a must. It features some of the most creative, original sci-fi, fantasy concepts in a brilliantly told story about growth and redemption. It's the type of show where describing it doesn't do it justice, it must be seen to be appreciated. I was shocked and sorely disappointed to find out it was cancelled after season 2, especially with such good build-up and payoffs. You can find the first 2 seasons on Netflix if you live outside the US. It was broadcast on BBC America, so maybe American viewers can look on their website to see where they can watch reruns. TLDR. Any show with Elijah Wood and a gang of energy-sucking goth vampires fighting a cult of soul swappers over a time machine to rescue a corgi can't be bad. Generation Kill. Great show on HBO. Don't know too many people who've seen it, but they all say it's great, including me. Babylon 5. It's nearly 27 years old at this point, and the CGI isn't too bad all things considered. It pioneered arcs and season-long plots that references previous episodes and seasons. The story is fantastic. IDK. Exactly how popular it was, but the United States of Terra was really good emo. Continuum. It was a sci-fi show where an officer gets stuck being sent back in time with a group of terrorists. I'd say more, but spoiler alerts. Farscape. It had 4 seasons, so that's mildly successful at least, but I never hear anyone talk about it. It's one of my absolute favorite shows of all time with a stellar cast, both in terms of the actors and the characters. If you like sci-fi at all, I can't recommend it enough. Don't Trust the Bee in Apartment 23. Best sitcom ever. Amazing cast. Kristen Ritter, Eric Andre, Van Der Beek as himself. What more did you want, people? Still depressed that it was cancelled. An Idiot Abroad. Cool traveling-based show. Except he's usually thrown into an odd situation. Shows the places in a very unique way, one that a normal person living there may see their surroundings and not as a tourist would. Almost Human. Sports Night. iZombie was quite good, but I've never heard anyone talking about it. It's the only CW show that I thought it was cool. Better Off Ted. Ringer. True Calling. Reaper the Finder. I'm also tempted to list forever, but I feel that show was fairly popular. It was just cancelled too soon in favor of the craptastic final season of Castle. Counterpart. Amazing sci-fi espionage series that lasted 2 seasons at Showtime a few years ago. J.K. Simmons plays a meek, gentle paper pusher at a mysterious company in Berlin who finds out that his organization is actually in charge of communicating with a twin organization in an alternate universe. He then meets his own twin, who is an amoral, cynic, calculating assassin. Amazing stuff. Thanks for watching. See you later.